At exactly 3:17 every morning, I would wake to the sound of frantic knocking echoing through the lighthouse halls. I used to think isolation was the worst thing about my job, until I realized I wasn't alone. I took the night shift at Greywater Lighthouse because I needed the money and the solitude. The world felt too loud after my brother died. Perched on a rocky point, the old lighthouse watched over miles of black water, its beacon slicing through coastal fog every 10 seconds. My only neighbors were the gulls and the endless, restless waves. My first week was uneventful. Days spent checking equipment, nights listening to the wind scrape at the windows. But during my second week, things changed. I awoke in the dead of night to a sound that didn't belong, a sharp, desperate pounding on the front door. The clock on my phone read 3:17 a.m. The knocks were quick, urgent, like someone begging for help. My skin prickled with dread. No one should be out here this late, not unless they were in real trouble. I threw on my boots and made my way down the spiral staircase, flashlight in hand, the air around me cold and heavy. Each step creaked beneath me, echoing in the cavernous silence. The knocking stopped as suddenly as it had started. I hesitated by the door, peering through the small, salt-crusted window. Nothing, only darkness and a sliver of moonlight gleaming off the wet rocks outside. I waited, heart pounding, but no one called out. The only thing I heard was the crash of distant waves. By morning, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just the wind or some loose part of the old building. But that night, I lay awake, unable to shake the feeling that someone, or something, had been standing just outside. It happened again the next night, and the night after, always at 3:17. Always that desperate rhythmic knocking. I started dreading sunset, counting down the hours until the nightly ritual began. I checked the door, the grounds, even the nearby rocks by daylight. Never any footprints, never any sign that someone had visited. It was as if the sea itself had sent a messenger to my door. One night, driven by a blend of fear and stubborn curiosity, I decided to catch whoever was tormenting me. I set my alarm for 3:10, sat on the bottom stair in the dark, and waited. The lighthouse seemed to hold its breath around me. At exactly 3:17, the knocks started, louder and more frantic than ever. I lunged for the door, yanked it open, and shined my flashlight out into the fog. No one was there. My breath hung in the freezing air. The only sound was the distant roar of waves and the faint, slick sound of water trickling down stone. And then, beneath me, I heard it. Something climbing up from the rocks below. Slow, scraping, dragging movements, wet and deliberate. My heart stuttered. The stairs leading up from the beach to the lighthouse were slick with moss, treacherous even in daylight. I aimed my light downward, but the beam was swallowed by the mist. The sound grew louder, closer. I stepped back inside and slammed the door, forcing the old lock shut. Something heavy thumped against the base of the door, just once, like a final warning. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I inspected the stairs leading up from the shoreline. There were deep, wet streaks on the moss, as if someone, or something, had crawled up from the sea, leaving behind a trail of brine. No footprints, no explanation. I called the Coast Guard, but they dismissed it as nerves or maybe a prank. Nobody comes out to Greywater after dark, the officer said. It's not safe. Tides are deadly. I didn't argue. The nights grew colder and the knocking grew louder. Sometimes it would last for minutes. Sometimes I thought I heard a muffled voice between the knocks, a voice that didn't sound quite human. I started barricading the door with furniture. I slept with the light on. Still, every night at 3:17, the knocking came, always followed by the scraping, dragging climb. I tried to record the sounds, but each time I played them back, all I heard was static and the low drone of the foghorn. On my last night at the lighthouse, the knocking started earlier. This time it was angrier, shaking the whole door in its frame. The cold seeped through the walls, and I heard water sloshing just outside. I pressed myself against the door, whispering to myself that sunrise would come soon, that I'd be safe. The final knock was so loud it rattled the lanterns on the walls. Then silence. I left Greywater Lighthouse at dawn, never looking back. Sometimes, in my dreams, I still hear those knocks, urgent, pleading, inescapable. I don't know what wanted to be let in, but I pray no one ever opens that door. Like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel.